This is George Dionne with Metal Express Radio, and I'm here with Joel Hoekstra of Joel Hoekstra's 13. He's also the guitarist for that tiny indie band you may have heard of, Whitesnake. How you doing today, Joel?
I'm doing great, George. Thanks for having me on, dude.
Hey, no problem. If I knew absolutely nothing about Joel Hoekstra's 13, how would you describe the music to me?
Uh, I mean, it's old school classic rock, like late 70s, 80s kind of sound. Dio-ish at its heaviest, Foreigner-ish at its lightest.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, especially on your new album, Running Games, which comes out February 12th, 2021. Now, you've assembled a band for this project, but do you do most of the writing and composition work?
I do all of it. That's why it's somewhere between being a solo album and a band, because I mean it sounds like a band when you turn it on, and that's the intention. I like to have write so it comes off as it's about the songs, and it sounds like a good old fashioned classic rock, like songs that people want to hear. However, it's different in that I do all the writing. Like I write all the riffs, I write all the lyrics and all the melodies and everything. So it wouldn't be fair to those guys to call it a band. And
Right.
At the same time, it feels weird for me to call it a solo album because people would be expecting whatever, 4 minutes of me sweeping arpeggios all over the place. And that's not what this is. I mean, it's kind of like you put it on, it sounds like a band. So anyway, the best compromise I could come up with was calling it a project name, Joel Hoekstra's 13, which I thought was fair to everybody involved. And it best describes the what you're hearing, I guess, the project.
Was this album assembled, I would say, remotely? Like you would send the files back and forth?
Yeah, I mean that's the way it's been for a long time now for pretty much everybody in the industry. I'm actually one of the people that stands up for it. I mean, it gets a little bit of a bad rap, man. People are like, back in the day when everybody was in the studio together, it's like, dude, back then that was like, $150 an hour for like, and so nobody wanted to do takes because it was like, no, that's all right, let's be done. And nowadays, I mean, if I'm at home doing a solo for somebody as a session player, I'll do a million takes just because I'm like, hey, I'm at home. What does it matter? There's no pressure. I can do this until I give them the very best I can send them. So I look at it like I give people better tracks. So I feel like that probably would be the same then for other people doing tracks for me. So I actually like it. The only time it would be bad is if there's something that you wish, like, oh boy, I wish I was in the room with them and I could have told them, no, try this. But honestly, that might screw it up. Like, I feel like if I was there with Vinny playing, I'd tell Vinny what to do too much, I mean, just let him do his thing, man. He's a great drummer, right? So and that's the way I approach it with all these guys. I pretty much like give them the songs, just do your thing. So even though I'm writing everything at the same time, it still comes off like everybody's getting to play the way they play.
You've released a couple of songs from the album so far. Are you one of those guys that leave their songs open for interpretation, or are you willing to talk about the meaning behind a couple of them?
I mean, most of them are open to interpretation anyway, just because I mean, most of my lyrics are pretty vague, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like to have them be like, hey, I was walking down the street and then this happened, it's like, so most of them are kind of conceptual or vague, but I'm happy to talk about some of the lyrics if you want to talk about them. That's cool.
Well, let's take a different route. Let's ask why you thought Hard to Say Goodbye was the best song to put forward ahead of this release.
Well, that one is like a melody first song, and kind of like probably the most commercial or poppy sounding. And by commercial or poppy, I don't mean 2020 pop. I mean kind of like 80s rock metal pop, right? Like so it's very hooky and very melodic, and so in that regard, I think it is definitely a strong earworm and seemed to have enough heaviness. I kind of thought maybe I was going to take some flack for that one because it was kind of really on the melodic commercial end. And there's a lot of hard rock guys that are like, dude, just give me some, metal, give me some riffs. And so Anyway, it worked out good, man. People really liked that song, and then followed up with Finish Line, and that's a little bit more of like I call it a Dio-ish riff rocker, right? It's like, it's got a little bit of the Dio vibe, but the chorus I'd say is almost more of like a modern day Dokken or something. It's more like anthemic melodic '80s rock more than It doesn't sound like Dio in the chorus or so. Anyway. Just that's the best I could do to compare those, or to describe those first two. Finish Line is definitely the heavier of the two tracks.
And you certainly have sort of that 80s, 70s vibe. And obviously, you're the guitarist of Whitesnake, and a little bit of that bleeds into some of the songs. And I wanted to know if any of these songs were like leftovers from the Flesh and Blood writing sessions.
Well, there was Reb and I each gave David some riffs, and that just ended up not really being the path that we ended up falling into to get songs together for Flesh and Blood. Like David had a lot of ideas, so most of the ideas on Flesh and Blood were more like building out what David had. So some of the stuff I gave, were riffs that David heard. But I think he just listened to him once. I don't think there was anything that he was really pondering. I think he kind of had, honestly, he had so many ideas for Flesh and Blood that we were good,
Yeah.
And we just built out his ideas, and then I didn't take any of that stuff personally, and just I always keep song ideas and that I dig, and I'll use them. So there's a couple things that could have fit with Whitesnake on here, but not a lot of it wouldn't have.
Since your last Joel Hoekstra's 13 album, Dying to Live, the band has pretty much stayed the same, except Jeff Scott Soto takes more of a background role this time. He doesn't sing any leads. Is there a reason for that? Was he just not available?
Really, the first time around, Russell was pretty busy and wasn't able to finish. I mean, he was supposed to be the lead singer on All of Dying to Live, and then Jeff was helping me out on backgrounds, and then I was like, dude, this album is going to take me 4 years to make. You feel like singing lead vocal on the rest of this? And Jeff's got a lot of projects and a lot of bands going on. The last thing he needed was one more, but he helped me out in doing that on Dying to Live, and he's a great guy, man. I mean, we're good friends, and he's I like to call him on this one the most overqualified background vocalist in the history of music. So it's very nice of him to help me out, but it's no slight on him that he's not singing lead on it. It's just, Jeff's got a lot of bands, man. Since then, he added Sons of Apollo. He's got a solo album out literally right now at the same time as me releasing this. So that Exhibit A, right? So just imagine if I was releasing this album with him singing lead on it while he's releasing his solo album. At a point, Russell is the smarter choice. He's doing less right now. Russ is not really doing Adrenaline Mob anymore, so he just has Symphony X. So, hey, it's a guy with only one band. Let's get him.
I think Jeff Scott Soto might be trying to break the record for most albums with a different name attached to it that he sings on.
Yeah, Jeff's got a lot of irons in the fire, but he's got all that work for a reason, man. He's such a good dude.
He's great.
And he's such an amazing worker. I mean, he turns everything around so fast, and he does it exactly when he tells you he's going to do it. So if he says "Hey, man, I'm busy tomorrow, but whatever. What is today? Even Friday, I guess, right? But Sunday afternoon, I'll do this Sunday afternoon, and I'll have it to you Sunday night at 7 p.m." It's that's the way Jeff is, and it comes across at 7 p.m. It's like, wow, I love this guy. He gets stuff done, man.
Is there a significance behind the 13?
It's just a lucky number, dude. And I wanted something short because, look, you already got my name, which is approximately 375 letters. So by the time I was going to name a project after that, let's say I named it like a 2 or 3 word name after my name, it starts to be like, come on, dude, what are you're reading a document here to say the name of the band. So I wanted something nice and short. So a number worked for me. 2 digits, lucky number. Joel Hoekstra's 13. I thought, hey, okay, cool, done.
very succinct because some of those European bands like to use their super long names with no vowels, and then the band name is really long.
Vogelschlagen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Vogelschlagen, City of Dreams, Inside the World.
Yeah. Joel Hoekstra's Vogelschlagen Fantasies of Yesterday.
There you go. Perfect. That's your next project, and I'm sure it'll be on Frontiers. Speaking of Frontiers,
Yes.
did you get hooked up with Frontiers when you were playing with Night Ranger?
Yeah, that's when I met all those guys, and yeah, we've been friends this whole time, and it's worked out really well. I mean, Whitesnake signed with them too since I've been with the band, and the Purple album was out under them, and Flesh and Blood. So yeah, it's been good to just kind of know what I'm dealing with those guys. You know, not not trying to deal with a whole fresh new scene that I got to figure out navigate the landscape. Like I know everybody over there now. So I feel like I'm friends with those guys. It's good.
Now, obviously, there's no touring right now, but I see on YouTube you've done a number of jam sessions with different musicians. Is this something you're going to continue doing for the time being?
Yeah, man. I think that's one of the upsides of this whole mess, is that you put out these covers online, and it's pretty easy to get people to commit to it because there's really no commercial and there's no commercial weirdness about it. It's not like I'm going to put it out for money, right? So if you want to cover a song with somebody, people just tend to do it because it's like, yeah, okay, we're not putting out an album. We don't have to argue about money or when it's coming out or anything like that. Just like, all right, cool. YouTube video, fun. That's great. So yeah, I have another one in the works right now that hopefully I'll have out soon. And it just gives you an opportunity to work with people that you never worked with before and do it in a low pressure environment.
The one that really caught my eye was the one you did with Tony Harnell from TNT, the Echo Bats.
Yeah.
That was sort of like a 1970s, 60s Beatles-esque kind of thing. It was like a really fun kind of sounding thing. Do you see any more coming out of that, or is it just like we're bored, let's do this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of up to Tony really at this point. So we gave him a bunch of stuff, and that was the first song that he worked on, and he hasn't worked on any since. So
well,
I think it just depends on, I guess, whether or not there's enough demand for it too. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how we feel about that Echo Bats song, whether or not there was enough demand for it or not.
Yeah, it's tough. There's so much music out there today. It's tough kind of wedging your way in there,
Yeah, I mean, it's fine for me. I'm always happy to like pursue things and put things out there if I have the time and just kind of see what sticks, right? Because in the end, I'm just getting better as a musician the whole time, and stuff like that just gives me an opportunity to show people a little bit of variety too, right? It's like, yep. There's people out there that, they see in one band and they think that's all you can do. They watch you, they hear one song in one band and they figure that's the entirety of everything you can play in your life, which is like not even close. I've been through playing in so many different styles and so many different bands in my life that for me to get a little variety out there is actually fun.
I think a lot of heavy metal fans probably don't know that you're the live guitarist for Cher, at least during her last tour run that she had. How did you land that gig?
So that was 2017. David got his knee surgery done, so we knew Whitesnake wasn't going to be touring. And I just reached out to a bunch of people saying, hey, don't need a new gig or anything, but if you know of anybody who needs somebody to fill in for them, anything like that, I'm just looking to build a year this year and try and stay busy. I can't sit around 10 months and wait for TSO. I'm going to lose my mind. So my friend Justin Derrico, he plays for Pink and he plays for The Voice. He recommended me to the other guitar player on The Voice, Dave Barry, who was Cher's guitar player. He needed a fill-in. He's like, yeah, I need somebody to fill in. Who do you think I should ask? And Justin recommended me. And so, yeah, I got the opportunity to go in. And then as it turned out, Justin went on a promo tour with Pink, and they needed Dave more and more at The Voice. And I kind of ended up becoming more of the regular guy there for a minute, for a minute being like 3 years. But yeah, I mean, I think that the way things were evolving, this year it wasn't really going to happen because Whitesnake had a big year booked, and it was like, we had six. Well, by this year I mean in 2020, we had about 6-7 months of touring, and then I would have had 2 months with TSO, so I was looking at 8 months on the road already. So. I couldn't take another year like 2019. I was on the road 285 days that year. So that was completely mental. And that was juggling all 3 gigs. And I have little kids at home too, man. My kids are 8 and 5. So to be gone that many days out of the year was a little extreme for me.
So with someone like Cher, do you just meet up on the stage and, you do your things because you're all professionals, and then after that you really don't see her? Or is she somebody that kind of like hangs out at least every once in a while, I guess?
I would say it's somewhere between those. In general, it was like everybody meets in a circle before the show, just like a regular band. And she's usually the one that says, hey, blah, 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 the little motivational pep talk or whatever. And you go out and play the gig. And for the most part, there was not a lot of like, hey, but she did some stuff like that was really fun, where she'd have took us out to the movies and things like that. Right. So everybody would go, and next thing you know, you're in a movie theater, and there's Cher like waiting in line for popcorn. I mean, it's like it's really fun. So it was somewhere between all of that is the answer, because you definitely get to know her a little bit, but at the same time, total pro, and not like it's not like she's going to be, hey, what are you doing tomorrow morning? Want to get coffee? I mean, it's not like that. So but she's great.
You've played with a lot of bands and a lot of artists. Have you ever turned down a gig because it wasn't your thing?
Never. I mean, if I have time, I'm doing it, man. That's the bottom line. Yeah. So if it's good, I mean, there's times where I turn down opportunities because I don't have time. So that has happened. I mean, that's kind of me with the whole like New York theater thing right now, right? Because I subbed on pit gigs here, and that's how I ended up getting Rock of Ages and fallen into 6 years of that. And then there are shows here in town, but if I'm not the regular guy, like people will ask me if I'd want to be the fill-in, like, and it's kind of like, no, I don't really want to like learn a whole book to like once in a while get in and make a couple $100 playing a show. It's just not like, I can't wrap my head around that at this stage of the game. But that's not to say I wouldn't do it if the timing was right on it. So that's just an example of like a thing that nowadays I'll go like, yeah, maybe not, but that's not to say, I mean, I'd be happy with a lot of those theater gigs. Those are good gigs. You get to play regularly and make pretty good money. And so, I'm not turning my nose up at it per se, but when, like I said, in 2019, when I have 285 days on the road already, why do I want to, that's, come home and do more of that? And that was kind of the case with Rock of Ages. Just recently started back up in a small theater here in New York off Broadway in 2019. And they did ask me to do it, but I was kind of like, I can't see doing it, man,
Right.
Now with everything I had going on.
Well, yeah, of course. Do you have anything going on with Whitesnake right now behind the scenes?
No, I got really nothing there, man. I mean, David's been working on this the box set, right? Is it a box set? I don't know. It's
like a series of albums.
The trilogy, right? So you got the rock album and the love songs, and now the blues album, and that's just like those are compilation records, right? So he's been kind of moving those for the time being, and then everybody's just kind of waiting to see what he's got in mind. So I think all of us are probably ready to do something. Hopefully, I mean, it's all up to David though. We're all chomping at the bit. I'm sure to hang together and do something. So we'll see.
Do you have any other projects that you're working on?
Well, I just put in the riffs for that project with Michael Sweet and Nathan James.
Yep.
So that would be probably the next thing on the list to mention, doing that. And outside of that, just really, really busy co-writing with my friend Jim Peterik for an album he's producing right now.
Oh, yeah, I talked to Jim this year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, Jim really has a lot to do with me. It gave me my start in a lot of ways. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, so not far from him, and he would, have me over to his house to do sessions and things like that. And then his World Stage Band, which he would have these shows once a year, he put me in the house band. And then so he would have his friends come and play, and you'd play their hits, right? So I got to play with a lot of people through that. And I guess probably the big break from that was Kelly Kagi from Night Ranger was there at all those, and so I'd play the Night Ranger songs with him, and that's what led to Night Ranger, is really Peterik, me playing in his band. So that gave me my in and my opportunity to play with Night Ranger off of that. So yeah, I mean, I owe a lot to Jim.
Excellent album. I'm going to encourage people to check it out. I loved it. I listened to it quite a few times this week, and I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with Metal Express Radio today.
Sweet. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I appreciate it.